Cool. Recording. Oh, cool. Recording in progress. Okay. So I have 17 minutes. So hi, if those of you who don't know me, I'm Ashlyn. I'm a second year at House that studies political science as a specialist. And yeah, I think that IR is one of the topics that I know more about. So I'm here to share with my cool seminar. Question at the end, please. And if there's any sensitive topics that I may mention, you feel free to step out. I'm not going to mention any like specifically sensitive things, but if anything, like bothers you, you are free to leave. Okay, cool. I think starting off then. So first a motion debrief from Thursday because our Thursday meetings coordinator told me that too many people were complaining about the complexity of the motion. So the motion for this Thursday was, this House supports governments recognizing the Taliban as a legitimate government of Afghanistan. Obviously, people who have more like spec or knowledge on the history of Afghanistan would be largely benefited. So, for example, like the nature of the regime in Taliban, the extent of centralization that they currently have. But I think that with no spec or like basic knowledge, like when the U.S. invaded, when they pulled out in 2021, without knowing how the Taliban necessarily structured, I think that some useful questions to ask are threefold. One is what the incentives of the Taliban are and how they respond to diplomatic recognition. Note that diplomatic recognition is very verbal and very symbolic. So like it's very, very hard to prove a delta on tangible effects unless you do the linking between incentives of the Taliban and how they perceive this and how they must act as a result. I think this is very important because I think that the links between, I think, like the perception of diplomatic recognition and then the regime or the Taliban regime in Afghanistan's thus reaction. Maybe they perceive it as a threat, maybe they perceive it good, etc. Maybe they foster international relationships. I think these are things that flow only naturally from these incentives of the regime. The second thing to ask is how recognition changes the Taliban's perception. So not only how the Taliban perceive the world, but how the U.S. or like China perceives the Taliban, and why does this matter? Like for example, is the Taliban now maybe allowed to like negotiate in like the UN or something? I think these are things to consider when considering how countries might react to this and whether this is good or harmful. I think the third thing is what might happen the counterfactual, which is to say the world in which we do not recognize the Taliban, the world, or like the status quo. For example, a counterfactual that was apparent in the room that I judged was essentially that Russia and China are engaging with the Taliban anyway. So insofar as the West is not recognizing the Taliban, you're basically seeing a very critical point of geopolitical competition. If this is reasonably proven, I think that makes your case stronger, which is why the world in which this is not happening might be worse or more beneficial. I think I'm spending way too much time on this. So really quickly, I think that two I guess traps people might fall into is like the margins or extent of impact of one, like soft power. Like you can like say like soft power might exist, like maybe like I don't know, the U.S. maybe has a little bit more presence in Afghanistan as a result. But like soft power, like you have to thoroughly, I think, prove what tangible outcomes actually occur. And the second is the likelihood of escalation, which is like if you want to prove that the Taliban gets more aggressive, I think that this has to be, I think, ascertained. I think that some teams tend to not prove this. But I think my take is just try to go for lower burden arguments, which is like, I think perception-based arguments or like, opt-in arguments, like maybe the Taliban gets X amount of financial resources, maybe they opt into the international global economy better, and therefore, the Taliban oppresses women, oppresses, like people on the ground, and this is bad, we shouldn't empower the Taliban. I think the clearer links are impacting as to why this actually creates harm on the ground in Afghanistan is good. I think I've had a very long that motion debrief. Let's go to my main content, which is, also this is my fish. His name is Hamburger. It's so nice. Anyways, why gather war spec? So this is mainly going to focus on conflict, the seminar, and the two quick reasons are just one, understanding the moving parts of war in relation to a BP debate, such as delegation structures because war is not unilateral, how diplomatic intervention might play a role, the ways war shapes culture, advocacy, and international norms, which might be relevant, and also what incentives, very key, structural incentives lead to stopping or I guess starting war. Potential clashes. This is not exhaustive. There are many other clashes that could be involved in these war debates, but like when it's likelihood of war, like escalation to war, like how likely accidental initiation might occur, to severity of conflict, does the existing war get better or like worse as a result of foreign intervention, changing incentives, desperation, potentially this leading to maybe more justice or like more industry. The war is sometimes good for the economy because produce weapons. I think the third clash is like the peace, which is like that's the flip side of the first one, and the third or the fourth is the likelihood of deterrence. I guess like my personal take on deterrence, like mechanisms, is they're kind of hard to prove, but like because like deterrence is very like hypothetical versus like if you get tangible outcomes, like maybe like militarization leading to more better economic outcomes, it's easier to prove. But yeah, deterrence is also a clash that often happens in military motions or like IR debates. Cool. So I think the general overview, so basic information about IR. Now this is like I'm trying to appeal to a different range of I guess info like skill levels, but I'm not sure how how much you read about IR. Like I read foreign affairs, not sure if you guys read foreign affairs because I'm kind of a loser for that one. But there's two kind of like broad like concept based like groups I'm trying to go over. I think just for the general overview, I think the first is just like types of actors in IR and characterization that you should be familiar with as a BP debater, which is fourfold kind of broadly, which is like one is like countries like states. They're often the ones initiating conflict because they have a lot of capacity. They have governments. They have like institutions, right? I think the second kind of group of actor is like kind of like groups or like networks, like multinational corporations. These are just like also abbreviations, like MNCs. So like corporations, McDonald's, like I don't know, Burger King, like I don't know, like Northrop Grumman, etc. We have IGOs like the UN and NATO, NGOs like think tanks, like the UN branches of the UN are often NGOs. The third group is like just groups. So this looks like private military organizations like Wagner in North Africa. This looks like, for example, like the paramilitary organizations that states might have. This looks like rebel factions in countries, for example, Sudan, like Syria. Also like historically in like countries of civil war, like Angola or like Namibia, etc. And the fourth is individuals. So if you often prove like maybe like Putin wants to do like X, or maybe like Xi Jinping wants to do Y. This is often also an argument that you can feasibly make in terms of how countries interact with each other. The fourth type of conflict, really quickly, for the purposes of this seminar, this is not exhaustive. It is much more nuanced, but it's fourfold, which is like one, it's just like civil war, interstate conflict, which often involve many groups and a lot of interest-based interventionists. Like Russia has like a stake in Sudan. They support the rapid defense forces. The second is like border skirmishes or minor engagements. I think the best example I have of this is just like the Sino-Soviet the Sino-Soviet split and like the border skirmish they had on like China's north border, which may lead to conflict. This is how you like maybe characterize risk, for example. The third is interstate conflict. So like say like a war between like Sudan and South Sudan, hypothetically. This is probably this is more limited. There's some alliances maybe, and there's often attempts by international bodies like the UN or like actors like China at mediation. The fourth is like larger scale conflicts. So 30 years war, Napoleonic wars, obviously the two world wars, which includes large networks of alliances and mass mobilization. This is the easiest way to prove harm, and you can actually get larger scale conflict. Larger scale conflict has big impact. I guess it's like I guess it's the easiest way to get harm, but it's harder to prove, I guess. The bigger the conflict is, the harder it is to prove. So you just if you want to prove like a large war happens because of Taiwan, for example, in a debate, you want to be specific as to how like the steps in which this might occur in order to prove your argument the most, as opposed to just like not prove it. Because an unproven argument can be very easily taken down, but also like not be evaluated very highly in a debate. Okay, more characterization of conflict, but this is very key to note because this is, I guess, with respect to impacting debate, which is first, like modern warfare has like evolved, right? So this is like this influences the intensity and scale of conflict. So a couple of things I've listed here that is very key to note. Which is I think that's falling under the broad category of weapon and industrial capacity. Obviously, modern warfare is not like World War I. World War I, we had like chemical weapons, we had like trench warfare. Now we have things like drones. Turkey produces a lot of drones, as well as China. Or like we have artillery that is used in the Russo-Ukraine war. This is like high efficiency. This can kill a lot of people potentially. But also we have the military-industrial complex that produces which is like corporations producing weapons at a using economies of scale very efficiently, but also like massively. They sell arms, for example, to conflict places to make profit. But yeah, very, very key to note, there's large power disparities, which you should probably characterize. So for example, if you're, debating on like whether or not like civil conflict is likely in like a, in Sudan or something, or it's already in civil conflict. Civil conflict is likely in a, say like developing country with like, ethnic tensions. Power disparities often can factor into this. There's a bunch of other stuff. I'm gonna like move on because I don't have that much time. But also things like globalization also I guess you should consider when characterizing conflict and impacting it. So that looks like access to funding and resources, but also there's sanctioning, right? When a country goes into war with each other, they like might get sanctioned by international actors. So this might be a disincentive to war, which is sanctioning or like backlash from like the international body. Things like information, cybersecurity, and commerce networks might impact the success of a country during war or like their perceived sense of success. So this might be a deterrent effect. There's NGOs which provide, maybe like aid, like humanitarian aid. So maybe you can symmetricize like some harms using the concept of NGOs maybe intervening. And also there's international tribunals. This is less relevant because this is more principled or like how like, maybe like on like on the core of justice, if you're like doing like an is ought motion or something. Okay, yeah, internal disorders, obviously, if you're a country that goes to war, presumably there's a lot of maybe political instability. Maybe this can be a dimension you impact in like some kind of motion. Okay, this is like quick exercise. I'll do like maybe like 1.5 minutes on this. Example motion being this house believes that third-party military intervention in civil wars in the pursuit of peace does more harm than good. Does anyone have any possible like arguments or like impacting or preemption of opposition on OG? I'll take like 3. Yeah, what's up?
The intervention of the party and they can have real conflict of interest in supporting which side. So at the end of the war, like whichever side wins, whichever policies or resources get instated, might end up benefiting this third party instead of the actual citizens who need to heal.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's large external profits. Like for example, when America funds civil wars, potentially is because that they have like internal interests that they are trying to meet, and maybe this is principally bad, or maybe this causes harm to a bigger degree within the nation. I'll take maybe one more. Go for it.
Extending on that, like if multiple countries are coming in and each having their own interests, that could continue to fuel the war rather than trying to stop it, because each use peace as like the party they have interest in winning. So when multiple groups are being funded by these third parties, then like at least in a culture of different interventions, it can cause more conflict than it actually stops.
Yes, the perpetuation of conflict is often something you can impact in debate, which is like insofar there are competing interests within a country, this is likely going to be more funding for opposite sides. This probably means one side is going to not run out of like on the counterfactual, maybe one side is funded and maybe they win quicker. When conflict is prolonged, this means more deaths. Easy. Okay, cool. Conflict related incentive very quickly. 3 things. One is unmet political claims like ethnic tensions, ideological stuff. This is probably separated into short-term and long-term. There's also historical division and legacies, like often in a lot of countries in like post-colonial states, for example, Central Africa, for like Northern Africa, also like Algeria. There's a lot of like these like unmet political claims and these like legacies of like colonization that often lead to intrastate, but also interstate conflict. Second is greed and profit incentives. Man, like there's like a theory where it's like Bush and Cheney were involved in like big oil and like guess where the oil is, guys? Iraq. So there's like reasonable incentives you can characterize, and the third is just alliances. How do alliances factor into war? Is like NATO like a sufficient deterrent to Russia? If you want to try to prove this, mech it out. But alliances are very, very important. Make sure to consider them in a lot of like in almost all military motions. There's going to be like NATO or like CETO or like like even BRICS like brought up. So just be sure to consider like preemption to this, but also like how this might impact like the success or even like the probability of escalation. Okay, impacting and weighing more. I think this is more yeah. So I think 3 things on this is just like one manifestation. I think that this is the easiest way to impact. If you successfully prove that war happens, this is the easiest way to prove like harm is just like manifestation. Things like ideas like the consequences of military instruments, like for example in the like West Bank, this is like a paradigm of urban warfare. You destroy infrastructure, but also insofar as you're fighting like guerrilla warfare, you're like also harming a lot of civilians. It's hard to like distinguish civilians from like guerrilla fighters, right? Also destruction of critical infrastructure, you destroy like pipes, electricity lines, you deny people very critical services. If you illustrate this, I think that your harms get I think more clear. So other thing is like conscription. This is like I think less like prominent, but it's like people might get conscripted if war happened, and it's like causes people to die. Terrible. I think the second point of impacting is like likelihood, which is exacerbated through risk. So this looks like so specifically like I guess nuclear weapons. I know like, I have to check on this, but it's like nuclear weapons like without good containment system and without good like checks and balances, you get like things like the 1980s like nuclear incident where like someone almost not launched a nuke because they thought like the US launched a nuke, and also the Cuban Missile Crisis, which almost led to escalation if it weren't for one person intervening and saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't launch like a bomb at a US ship. Yeah, and also like there's also likelihood of war can be illustrated through like things like democratic peace theory, like maybe democracies don't go war with each other because they have incentives not to, or like maybe autocracies are more volatile, like maybe not al-Bashar because he's gone, but like say like maybe Putin is more likely to go to war because he has less checks and balances, he has less risk to incur because he's just one dude, versus like the unhired Congress has to presumably agree to go to war. There's recognition, like again, like the Taliban, maybe they want to be recognized by the international body. Maybe this means maybe they'll treat people better in a more humanitarian way. Like recognition and optics are often something you can also consider in like war. Okay, cool. I'm like slightly early. I didn't know that was this short. But yeah, have any questions? Like any questions on like specific I guess things I've said? I like went through it really fast. I didn't think I have that much time, but yeah. If no questions, we can. Oh, you have a question? What's the question, bro?
So I like the likelihood of war is like a fairly common question, it's often underproven. What would you need, like what specific burdens would you need to be proven for like something like proving likelihood of war?
I think the likelihood of war is just like you have to connect like links, right? For example, if you like there was a motion and I think like was it Shriram or whatever, a motion that was like this house believes that like I think it was like the US or like the China should like engage in like more like I guess assertive military posturing or something. Like and like the like likelihood of war like claim I think that like OO made was like insofar as like China petitioned themselves very, very harshly. This maybe like increases the risk of war because you have more weapons on the ground. Maybe someone makes an accidental strike and someone like thinks it's like a like indication of like conflict, right? Like I think that it's like I think the link between war and like the actual war happening and like I guess like your like argument is just like I think the number of mechanisms or like the dimensions you consider is a very good way of like I guess like proving it. Because likelihood is ultimately probabilistic. You cannot like say there's 100%, like 100% China's gonna like invade Taiwan now. But if you like say things like, oh, like structurally the CCP, maybe like has like their eyes, had like locked in on Taiwan for like years, has made Taiwan a central part of their foreign policy. And you also said something like maybe China has like confidence in their military capacity. China has a lot of people. China also has Taiwan has a lot of semiconductor, but also China, maybe has technological things like drone production that may make them more, like, very, very confident in their I don't know, like their capacity for war, things like that. I think increase the likelihood, but just like the links, I think are better proven with like a greater number of mechanisms or a greater number of ways in which like the I guess relevant countries are incentivized or maybe like have proclivities to go to war. But yeah, there's no way of proving like things. I think 100%. Just like I think just like list as many mechanisms that are relevant to this as possible and make them like very strong and relevant. Yeah, make them very strong and like not like I guess like derivative or something. Don't be closing, guys. Okay, yeah, that's TLDR. Any other questions? We are so on time, guys. If no other questions, I think we are free to go to the debate.
Not bad.
Huh?